thank everyone for joining us today on Microsoft Team. Hopefully, we will be able to get together soon in person. Today, we have Dr. Boyd, which we're so excited about having her, and Miss Stacy. Um, I'm going to go ahead and if you all would, we can start now.
All right. Am I on?
Yes.
All right. I would like to say afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to our program, B is for Breathe, a conversation with Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd. And I would like to say welcome, and you're in for a wonderful treat. This is a beautiful, informative, and very essential book that Dr. Boyd is going to read for us today. I would like to first start off giving you a little description of BIPOC Month, BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month, and BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color. And the Mental Health Awareness of America described BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month as for people, and the purpose of it is for people who are struggling in underrepresented groups, Black people, Indigenous people, and other people of color, regarding mental health awareness. And of those of you who do not know that May is actually Mental Health Awareness Month. But in 2008, the United States House of Representatives designated July as Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and specifically BB Moore Campbell Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. If you all don't know who BB Moore Campbell is, she is a journalist, she is an educator, and she is a well-known author, especially in the Black community. And BB Moore Campbell had a loved one who was diagnosed with a mental illness, and she was in denial. She testified that she was ashamed, she was embarrassed, and she did not want to talk about it. And finally, she came to the conclusion that she needed to embrace the diagnosis of her loved one. And from that point on, after she embraced the diagnosis of her loved one, she went head on into advocating for mental health awareness in the Black community. So much so that she added to her canon of books by writing an adult novel called 72-Hour Hold. The name of the book is 72-Hour Hold. And she also wrote a children's picture book, and it's called Sometimes My Mommy Gets Angry. And this was her contribution to making sure that mental health awareness was destigmatized in not only the African American community, but other communities of color. And when you get a chance, it will do you very, very well to look up BB Moore Campbell and find out more about her and her advocacy for mental health awareness in the Black community. And so today we have a very special guest with us. Our guest today is Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd. Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd is a mother. She is a wife. She is a clinical psychologist. She's an officer in the United States Army, and she is also an author. And Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd credits her God and her family for her motivation and her strength for writing and the other things she accomplishes in life. And those things are, she has worked, because of her career, she has worked with treating service member in the Army with behavioral health disorders, including PTSD. And prior to that, she also has worked with children in the Philadelphia School District. And I would like to welcome and introduce you right now to Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd. And Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd, she is going to define to us what is mental health and how her career has been instrumental in her writing this book, B is for Breathe. Dr. Melissa Munro Boyd.
Well, thank you for having me. Very glad to be asked to participate in this event. I think it's very much needed. Talking about mental health awareness, talking about the book specifically talks about coping skills. And I was just glad to put some ideas together, put it into the format of a book to share specifically with children so that they are equipped with ways to manage stress and manage just all that can come with life. But when we're thinking of mental health, that encompasses emotional, psychological, just our well-being in regards to how we manage stress. So it is not just in emotions or feelings. Mental health encompasses also our thoughts and our behaviors. And so often we look at the whole picture, how the person's thoughts, their feelings, and their behaviors are perhaps just not healthy. And so this impacts not just the person themselves, but mental health impacts interactions with others, impacts functioning, whether that's at home, functioning at work, how just someone is taking care of themselves. And so without considering mental health and these conditions being undiagnosed, often it can be seen as just a behavior issue, or that the person is just not perhaps motivated. And it's important to consider the person's mental health as far as how that's contributing to what they have going on in life and how it is that they're managing that. In taking a look at B is for Breathe, I noticed that in working with children, I do see primarily service members currently, but I focused when I was in grad school and just earlier on when I entered the military, being able to work more so with children and families. And there is a tendency for children's feelings and concerns to often be minimized. I often do hear adults or parents or teachers say, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. You should not, be concerned about whatever the stressor is. And children are impacted by stress, and it's important to give them the words and the skills to know how to manage that rather than just telling them that they should be okay and they should feel okay. But how do you get to that place? And so in writing B is for Breathe, wanted to identify just different coping skills that kids can apply to their day, whether that's at home or in the school setting, just in any environment, so that they know how to manage stress in a healthy way and they don't resort to unhealthy coping skills, whether that be substances or just acting out behaviors, which is often ways of trying to manage their frustration. So healthy ways that are introduced to them, because often we are conditioned. We learn how to manage stress often by what we observe from others. And so being intentional to talk with them, to show them this is something that you can do to cope with how you're feeling. That's important that we as adults do that and we take the time to have those conversations with children.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is very important right now, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now. It is so much going on. And we're going to touch on some of those subjects later after you read your book. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID and everything that entails. We're going to talk a little bit about school reopenings and the fear going into that. And we're going to talk a little bit about some racial issues that are going on that may or may not either cause or exacerbate mental illnesses. So right now, Dr. Boyd, she's going to read her book. She's going to read her book, and I'm going to put up the images for it. So I'm going to click shares, and I'm going to click myself out and put up the images for her book at this time.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So title of the book is B is for Breathe. And it is the ABCs of coping with fussy and frustrating feelings. I utilized the ABCs because I wanted to just have a neat way of kids being able to hold on to certain letters and hopefully help them in memorizing which coping skill might work best for them. Okay, so the first coping skill is A is for art. Often for children and for adults, it can be hard to express what emotion you're feeling. And so being able to express what's on your mind or the emotion that you're having, being able to express that on paper, whether that's drawing or painting, can really be helpful. B is for breathe. So belly breathing by slowly taking a deep breath in through your nose and then slowly breathing out through your mouth. Deep breathing is something that I hope you can really try to incorporate into your day, whether that is at work or at school. It can be used in any setting, but this is something that not only helps to slow down your physiological response to stress, but also helps to slow down your thoughts as well. So C is for count to 10. So slowly count to 10 by thinking about a feeling, thinking about feeling calm while you're counting. D is for dance. So often just expressing pleasure through motion can really help with the emotions that we're feeling. E is for eat a healthy snack. Good food choices are healthy, not just for your mind, but also for your body. F is for fun with a friend. So enjoying time with a friend, even if you're not talking about your particular stressor or what's on your mind, but just having some time with someone who is going to uplift your spirits instead of socially isolating, which is something that we can tend to do when we're feeling burdened, just to want to stay to ourselves, and that's actually not the healthiest. So having fun with a friend is healthier. G is for create a glitter jar or another craft. This is one that actually my daughter came up with because she's 7. She loves to do crafts. The whole idea of doing a glitter jar is use very few ingredients that's needed. So just water, glitter, glue, food coloring. You can put it in a jar or a water bottle. You shake it up, and then the idea is that as the particles are falling, you're looking at it and you're thinking of something calming as it settles. H is for hug a trusted person. So often physical touch can really be helpful with calming ourselves. And so being able to have that physical touch from someone who is a trusted person can definitely be helpful. So I is for imagine a favorite place. Another term for this can be guided imagery. So imagining your favorite calm and relaxing place in your mind, such as a beach, for instance. Something that's really helpful with guided imagery is utilizing your senses as well. So for instance, in this example, with the beach, thinking about how you would feel, what is something perhaps that you would smell, something that you would feel, things that you would hear. So whether that's hearing maybe waves in the water or feeling, imagining the sun beaming down on you or the feeling of the sand. So incorporating your senses while you're envisioning the place really can help to settle your emotions. Okay, so J is for tell jokes. So often laughter and telling jokes can really help to relax. K is for kick a ball and play other sports. So physical activity is known to relieve stress and also to build self-esteem. L is for listen to music. So listening to a favorite song, or perhaps even just a sound such as ocean waves or maybe waterfalls, or just something in nature, maybe birds chirping, can definitely help with settling our emotional responses. So muscle relaxation, this is slowly tensing and then relaxing each muscle group. It can be helpful to start top down. So starting with your face, where you're actually like scrunching up your face and holding it and then relaxing it, moving on to your hands, your arms, your stomach muscles, your legs and feet. This is helpful because often we do hold tension in our body. So you might notice that maybe your shoulders are tight. Often people get headaches that are strictly in response to stress, or back aches. And so noticing what tension feels like and then being intentional about relaxing your body is really helpful, so that you can be mindful as to, okay, maybe you're not thinking you're stressed, but your body is telling you that there is tension, and you can be intentional about relaxing those parts of your body. So N is for nature walk. So just enjoying walking while focusing on the senses and the nature around you. My husband went to Bowie State, so that's why I incorporated that.
Absolutely.
O is for organized, so cleaning up toys, or even for adults, just cleaning our workspace, cleaning our environment that we typically are in. Having clutter can actually lead to anxiety and stress, and so cleaning up and clearing out clutter is calming, not just for your mind, but also just for your physical surroundings too, to feel like you have more space. It can definitely add to a sense of peace and calm. P is for pray. So often prayer can lead to peace in your mind and body, particularly when there's situations that are just out of your control. And so this is one that can be done anytime, honestly, during your day. Okay, Q is for quiet time. So just being intentional about focusing your attention on the present. Even though I spoke earlier about having fun with a friend and being around others instead of socially isolating, anything that's too much can be not helpful. So we don't want to completely socially isolate, but having some quiet time just to think about your own thoughts. We do tend to focus on our emotions, our behaviors. We don't always just think about our thoughts, what it is that's going on in our mind. And so having quiet time can help in getting that done. So R is for read. So reading is definitely relaxing to the mind, not just as a distraction, but also just to have something that you're reading that's positive, perhaps uplifting, could help with how your thoughts are perhaps focused or perceiving a stressor. Okay, so S is for positive self-statements. So what we tell ourselves really impacts how we feel. And so it's nice when kids hear positive self-statements from their parents or from a teacher or another adult. But it's really important that they're telling themselves those same messages. And so in this example, just saying that I am awesome and I am smart. It is key that we are telling ourselves these messages so that when we hear it from others, it's a plus, but it shouldn't only be that it's coming from outside sources. So T is for talk about feelings. So sharing feelings, talking with a trusted person really can help to feel better. This is what I do on a daily basis as a psychologist. And one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book for children is because I notice with adults, sometimes it's just basic coping skills that are missing. And when faced with a stressor, their response is really unhealthy. And so being able to identify really what works for you when you're younger, hopefully as you grow older, you're just better equipped to manage what comes about. So use for unplug electronics. So just taking a break from electronics or media. Often those things can just be way too stimulating. And so as you might have a stressor and you're trying to problem solve or make healthy decisions, just having too much stimulation can actually cloud your judgment. And so just taking a break, even having a timer if you're not kind of mindful to do it on your own, but just having those reminders to know that it's time to kind of shut things down at a certain time of day. So V is for create a vision board, creating pictures and words to express feelings and thinking about future goals can really help to not focus on just the stressor that's right in front of you, but to be able to look forward and to see that what's in front of you is likely just temporary, and to be future oriented can really help with managing the stress. W is for write about feelings. So journaling, having your thoughts just down on paper so it's not all in your mind, just putting it down can really help with solving problems. X is for play the xylophone and other musical instruments. So just enjoying playing a musical instrument that is joyful and fun can really help with expressing your emotions. Y is for yoga. So yoga really relaxes the mind, but also releases tension from the body. So kind of similar to muscle relaxation, but just being intentional about stretching your body and taking time for physical activity is important, since there is a huge mind and body connection. And so we don't want to not focus on keeping our body healthy. And lastly, Z is for Z's. So just getting sleep, getting good rest, and taking a break can really help with relaxing emotions.
All right. Thank you so much for
you're
that.
welcome.
Boy, that was beautiful. Lots of good and ancestral information that we've just heard. And I want to touch upon the last one, Z. Z is for getting enough sleep, enough rest. And since we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and since the pandemic on social media and other platforms, I've heard a lot of people say that they just can't sleep. They've complained about not being able to sleep, up all times of the night, the days running into each other. What can that do to us mentally?
Yeah, so the whole idea with sleep, if there's not a medical condition that perhaps is contributing to sleep disturbance, but often sleep, if your mind is not relaxed, then your body's not relaxed. So if your mind is alert and active, then that is messaging to your body that you should be up, that you should be kind of on guard. But those are often false messages. Having a lot on your mind and being able to address those thoughts during the day, so that when you get to bed, that's not the first time where you feel settled and then those thoughts are popping up. But making time during the day to journal, to just have some people even have like a worry time where they focus on, okay, what is it that's on my mind? What are the things that I'm in control over? What are the things that are not in my control? Trying to have a good, in psychology, we call it sleep hygiene. So good routine to how you're getting ready, just preparing yourself for sleep. If you do have sleep disturbance, being mindful of not taking naps, not having too much caffeine in your system. You want to build up what's called sleep pressure. So really getting, by the time you get ready for bed, your body should be in a state of, okay, I'm not just laying down because it's nighttime, but this is something that is good for my body. It's needed for my mind as well. And so really just having some type of structure to your day, even as our days have changed, or maybe you're not going to work and you're home more because of whether that's school or just a shift in your work hours, but still trying to be consistent, even if you're home more, with the amount of sleep that you're getting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As I was reading the book, Sarah and I were talking about how a lot of these activities can work very well for adults, even though this is a children's book. The reading and the breathing, of course, the sleeping. I know when I get stressed, I like to go just put on my shoes and just go walk, even if it's just in the backyard. That's one of my ways of connecting with nature. Can you maybe give us an example of a effective breathing technique?
Yes, yes. So just getting in a relaxed position where your feet are on the ground and you're just feeling comfortable. But just taking some time, it can be helpful to close your eyes often so that you're not distracted. But just taking some time to take a deep breath in, and even putting your hand on your stomach so you can feel yourself taking a deep breath in, holding it for 5 seconds, and then taking a deep breath out. We could do that again. So taking a deep breath in, and then taking a deep breath out. It can be helpful while you're deep breathing to even utilize guided imagery as well. So while you're deep breathing, to think of a calming place or to think of a calming sound. And again, this is one that you can utilize in any setting. And so with deep breathing, often when we are faced with stress, physiologically, we might respond quicker than even our thoughts. And so being able to calm your body down so that you have the space, in a sense, to even think clearly or problem solve. And so deep breathing really helps with both aspects.
At this time, if anyone have any questions for Dr. Boyd, you can do that at this time.
Hi, Dr. Boyd. I don't have any questions, but it's more of a comment. I really, really enjoyed your book. Oh my goodness. It is exactly like they said. It's very good for even adults. I'll tell you, I'm a teacher and I taught summer school just recently. And I ran into a lot of students who were very, very sad and could not pull themselves out of this COVID thing to begin school. So it is very essential, just like was said in the beginning, and very needed for students to learn how to cope and to use these coping mechanisms. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I definitely, can you tell us where we can find your book?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for being an educator and just being in your position to not just serve students academically, but also to address their emotional needs. But the book it's available on Amazon and then also Barnes & Nobles and Target online and Walmart online as well.
Thank you. I'll definitely be purchasing some. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
And while we're waiting on another question, I would like to touch a little bit upon the school situation that we're going through right now. And I know the other day, Dr. Boyd, we were talking about the cases of child abuse being underreported now because school was seen as a safe place for children to go and be transparent. And so talk a little bit about that. And not only children, adults as well. If we're experiencing some domestic violence situations, even teachers see going to work as a safe place. Could you touch a little bit upon that right now?
Yes, it's very important because school is not just for just going to learn. It often is a safe haven and just a place where you have adults where you know their intention is to care for you and to teach you. And then often in the home environment, it's not perhaps as stable or as healthy. And so with children being home now, even though there's efforts made to connect online and virtually for classes, I would encourage that there's efforts made to connect and just to tap into the social emotional skills, and not just for the students to have time to perhaps play online games with their peers or a classroom activity with their peers, but also just to connect with an adult, to have some one-on-one time with their teacher or their teacher aide, to check in and like just be intentional about how are they doing emotionally, how are they feeling. Often that question gets asked, how are you? And this is just a quick response, I'm fine, I'm okay. That's almost like an automatic response, and we don't sometimes dig a little deeper to see, okay, how, like maybe being more specific about how is the transition of being home impacting you, or being specific in regards to, what are the good things about being home? What are the things that are bothersome? Like giving them those words so that they know it's okay to not be feeling okay. It's okay to not just say that they're good and they're fine if perhaps they are having a stressor. So you might have to be a bit more intentional about how you're asking or how often you're asking, and just having that one-on-one time, which I know it is hard to balance with having to do classes online and then also to try to meet students individually. But I do think whether that's with the teacher or utilizing the school counselors in some way as well, to try to see about the safety of students and the adults as well that are home more often and perhaps not in the healthiest environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, but how can that look if we're talking about parents who are choosing to keep their children at home for virtual remote learning? How would you suggest counseling should look? Because it's difficult to be transparent in front of your parent. So how can that look?
So in utilizing telehealth, it is virtual, but there's often, I encourage when there are difficult things to express, to type that to your person that you're speaking with. Maybe asking them some questions and saying, even if you're not able to answer right now, we can have maybe some type of other chat communication. So if the person in the room with the child is perhaps not supportive of them talking about certain stressors at home, hopefully the teacher or the counselor can encourage, if you're not talking about it, please message me. And I know a lot of this still has to go through the parents, but hopefully for the child to just hear that there's another option if they're not able to verbalize what it is that they're feeling, maybe to have another way of just communicating where they're expressing it through a written form. I know it is very tricky to try to see what's going on in a home when you cannot have someone one time or just some FaceTime with a child. But I would say that telehealth is that gray area. If you're not in school and you're not fully having face-to-face, that's the gray area of trying to still care for a child in a different way.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions at this time from our guests? Questions or comments?
Hi, this is Wang Ying. I'm the Adult Services Coordinator for the library. And I was wondering if we have an Adult Services meeting next Tuesday morning. And I was wondering to see if we can invite you guys to come and talk to our staff about this, if you're available.
So I will, I can just try to check the time. So I am actually, I'm active duty. I'm currently in South Korea. And so I'm not actually sure right now my schedule for Tuesday, but I can, I would like to be supportive and be available. I just would have to check just availability.
Absolutely. Maybe we can talk to Sarah about that.
Do you have any more questions or comments from any of our guests? What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? So, Dr. Boyd, okay, go on.
I'm sorry. Crystal. Crystal,
Yes, ma'am.
what does that look like as far as you are doing virtual this year?
Yes, so for all of Shelby County, they just announced that we will be going virtual for the first semester, which puts us back in school possibly in January. So we'll all be doing virtually through Shelby County.
So do you have like a set classroom? Is it going to be just a little bit of example of what that looks like?
So I'm thinking it's going to look a lot like it did over the summer for summer school, which we taught virtually. They had to cut off the kids' cameras because, kids will be kids. And we just taught through Teams. We taught the lesson virtually through Teams, and then we held like individual sessions. And I think that speaking to what we're speaking about today, I think that helped a lot for the students to have someone other than their parents that checked in on them and that cared for them. We were responsible for calling to check on them, to see if they were doing their lessons, checking on them. And I built a lot of, great relationships with students that I've yet to see. But just building those relationships by calling them, checking on them. Hey, how are you doing today? How are you feeling? Do you want to feel like doing at least one lesson today? So those kinds of things, it matters to the student. It matters. It makes them feel like someone cares out there other than, what's going on in their home life. So I'm thinking for, the first half of the semester, that's already been said, teachers and students will be virtual, period, for Shelby County.
Thank you, Crystal.
Sure.
And Dr. Boyd, I would like to go a little bit beyond the book. So we have the activities in the book, but going beyond the book, when do you suggest that it's time to seek help for either your child or for yourself?
So great question. I would say when you start to see an impact, or really to be preventive, before it starts to impact just your functioning. So even if you look at conditions such as anxiety and depression, those feelings in itself are not disorders, but when it impacts your functioning, so when it impacts areas of sleep, areas of appetite, your thought process, perhaps your productivity, your communication with others, those would be excellent times to seek help. And so sometimes it's hard for us to notice those changes, but also just being open to the feedback of others. Hopefully you have someone who can give you some insight as to maybe changes that they're noticing, but really to take that into consideration and seeing that there are resources, whether that's individual treatment, group treatments. And I know that even with the impact of COVID, those resources are still available. There's group therapy that's still being conducted. There's individual treatments that are still being conducted, consideration for medication evals. So those are things that really should not be ruled out just because we're in a different time right now where a lot of perhaps facilities or regular places that you would go to seek help, counseling centers, are not maybe functioning as normal in the office, but still look into how they're being conducted virtually or even just telephonically as well. But to specifically answer your question, when it impacts your functioning, that's when it's really becoming unhealthy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what should we look for in seeking a psychologist, a therapist, because we are talking about BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And a lot of times we want someone in our community who can mirror our experiences, who can relate. How important is it for Black people, Native Americans, First Natives, Asians, Hispanics? How important is it for us to, and it may not always be possible, but what's the importance of seeking someone who can mirror your experiences or at least can relate to what you're going through, right, racially or even the LBGT community.
Right. I do think it's important to try to connect with a provider who is understanding of your culture. I often, I'll hear doctors say, like, we're just treating the body, or we don't see color. We treat everyone the same. And it's important to see color. It's important to consider my culture or your ethnicity, your family dynamics, because that plays a huge part in how the person sees themselves. And so to bypass color, to bypass how someone identifies themselves, that really can take away from how they connect, and then how that person would be open to receiving feedback, receiving advice, receiving counseling. And so when you're starting off with counseling, you really want to build good rapport. And so if the provider is getting to know you, they should really want to get to know not just what condition or what it is that you're presenting with, but also your background, your family circumstances, the community that you live in, because all of that matters. And so it's important that someone understands you. It's nice if the person looks like you as well, but someone that looks like you might also not understand you. So I think that understanding piece is actually more essential than just what the other person looks like, and them just being open to learning about you so that you can build good rapport and build good communication, because you are less likely to communicate with someone that you feel is not going to understand you. You're less likely to be open to even changing and sharing like true feelings, and not just being on the surface with what your concerns are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do we have any more questions and comments from our guests before I ask this other questions? What's on your mind? What you're thinking? Feel free to chime in. And so I want to touch on, Dr. Boyd, a little bit about the racial uprisings that have been going on lately with the Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality. And I want to quote a stat that from NAMI. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. And the stat they quoted was that 63, which is a large percentage, 63% of, from a study, 63% of African Americans say that a mental condition is a sign of personal weakness. So speak on that for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge stigma in within mental health, is that if you're not feeling okay, then you're not strong enough. And I do hope that this message changes, even in regards to the racial tension and the unrest. To say that it's if you feel upset, or if you feel anger, if you're feeling sad or anxious about what's going on, to say that that's a weakness, that's not a healthy message at all. To have feelings about what's going on, that's actually healthy. You don't want to be numb. You don't want to be desensitized to the fact that what's going on now. I can talk with my grandmother about these concerns, and she can relate. You don't want to be desensitized and say that, well, it hasn't changed in all these years, so I'm not going to feel anything. That's really not healthy. And so hopefully by having communication, and even if it is anger that's being shown, hopefully you can communicate and see that sometimes underneath that anger or underneath that irritability, there is sadness there is worry, there is a lot of nervousness and stress that comes along with the lack of change that has happened, even though we're seeing the same, some of the same outcomes. But I do think it's important that we at least still talk about these things and be hopeful that there is change, and being able to identify emotions, that feeling your emotions, allowing yourself to feel your emotions is a positive thing and a healthy thing. It's not a weakness.
And absolutely. And I think that because a lot of people do view mental illness as a stigma, and we're inundated with all these visuals of police brutality and protests and things on fire. And And I've seen a couple of videos where small children, maybe like 6 or 7 or 8 years old, when they see a police, they just break out and start crying. So what kind of mental, what is these, how, I guess I'm saying, how much should we talk to our children about what's going on, and how much should we keep the TV off?
Yeah, I think there has to be a healthy balance between, I mean, kids talk to one another. They do, whether they're watching the news or just other, I mean, these images present themselves. And so I think it's important to be honest with them that there is tension, that there is unrest, there's inequality, but also just being age appropriate. These images can be a lot for adults. So for children, watching them and seeing these things, especially if it's repeatedly, and not having an opportunity to process that is really unhealthy. And so if a child is exposed to an image or a story, or they're just aware of a loss, being able to process and see how it is that they're feeling, what is their takeaway from, what message do they identify that scene with or that image with. And so I think being age appropriate, but not just saying to the child that this is something they don't have to worry about, something that doesn't affect them. It does affect them. It is their community. And if they are bothered by it, that's a healthy thing. We want to encourage them to speak about that emotion and not just say that it's something that is not that they want to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Do we have any more questions, comments from our guests? Sarah, would you like to chime in?
Oh, yes. Thank you both. You all are just outstanding. I hope that we can have this conversation again. I wanted to make sure if anyone had any questions or comment, you're certainly welcome to do that at this time.
Okay. And I would like to add that this, the subject of mental illness is very deep and it's very broad. And so I would suggest, and I'm sure that Dr. Boyd will suggest, that you do further research on, resources, free resources that are available. Dr. Boyd?
Yes, I would encourage that mental health is broad. Again, it's not just your emotions. You want to check in with your thoughts, check in with your behaviors, because it does impact your overall well-being. And so it is important to see what's available in your community for yourself, for a child, so that they at least know that there's resources. It's okay. You're being supported in being able to ask for help, being able to seek counsel. That is not a negative a negative thing at all. It actually is a sign of strength that you are being insightful and that you're noticing these changes and that you're wanting to see improvement or just be in a healthier state. So I encourage you to whether it's for yourself or for others, to just encourage that seeking help can really be beneficial.
And one more thing, I wanted to get this in before we go, because I have experienced this myself, especially with the Black community. I'm not too familiar about other communities and their religious practices. I know in a Black community, unfortunately, we believe that because you are a woman of God, I feel like I can feel safe saying this. We believe that prayer is prayer. We can pray everything away. How do you reconcile a prayer life with actually seeking help for yourself? Because you are a woman of God. Speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important to see it as an and, not an either or, that you can be a person of faith, you can have God as a focus, and to also see that God has put people, He's equipped people to help in managing behavioral health and mental health conditions. And so I mean, there's different levels of care, sometimes starting with perhaps talking to a pastor or a church group can really be a first step, but hopefully that step, if more is needed, that environment is encouraging a higher level of care, whether that's seeking counseling or seeking an evaluation. It is not okay to just keep it in-house or to say that because you're experiencing depression or stress or anxiety, that your faith or your belief is not strong enough. Because honestly, there's different levels of conditions. There's even for depression, can be adjustment disorders, but then there's clinical levels of depression. And so the mind-body connection, we really want to also focus on spiritually as well. If you are not healthy, then how you are able to even apply your faith and utilize your faith, you might not be able to do that in the way that you want to, just because that behavioral health condition is impacting how you're viewing yourself or how you're viewing life. And so I would encourage seeing it as an and, that having your faith group or just someone that you're seeking counsel from, seeing it as I can build up my spirituality, but I might also need someone else that's equipped in managing mental health conditions and seeking treatment, as kind of having a combination approach.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sarah?
Yes, yes. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. We certainly do appreciate our guests. And we can end today. I want to make sure she's getting rest because it's very early in South Korea.
It is.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boyd. I greatly appreciate your coming to join us, and we will try to connect again.
Okay, will do, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Boyd.
Thank you, Sarah.